Welcome back to the craft room here on the farm with Country Mama Musings. My name is Alicia and I'm so happy to share with you the process for making this beautiful log cabin in the Ozarks, Afghan. I made this for my brother-in-law while we were visiting in the Ozarks of Arkansas. I fell in love with the pattern and I wanted to share it with you. Let's review our materials. I'm using red heart yarn. I'm actually using what is going to be a stash buster for me. These are colors that I had up here in my craft room, and I decided to look for the colors that would best represent our time together in a log cabin. Now you can put together whatever color scheme you like, either using some yarn that you have in your stash or purchasing new, but make sure you get colors that speak to you. You can have as few colors or as many colors as you'd like to have in each little log cabin square. I'm opting for 4 main colors in my square and then a border of this beautiful dark brown. Let's discuss what colors I have here today. I have Cafe Latte, this light brown, which will be the center of our square. I then have Frosted Green, Medium Thyme, Navy Blue, and Coffee. You're also going to need a size I crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and a needle to sew in all of your ends. Now, depending on the size Afghan or lap throw that you would like to make, that will determine how many squares you make. You can either make an actual square lap throw or a rectangular Afghan. I made my Afghan in 6 blocks by 8 blocks for a total of 48 blocks. Let me clear all of this out of the way and let's get started on our first block so I can show you how nicely this comes together. Let's discuss the format of this beautiful granny square. It's not your traditional granny square. This is the log cabin granny square. We have the beginning of our granny square right here in this corner. Then we build on that square just on 2 edges as our square becomes larger and larger with each color change. We then finish it off with a solid border all the way around that will really join this together aesthetically once we put our blocks together. We're going to go ahead and get started right here with this little corner square, and we're going to start that in our Cafe Latte. So with our first color, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start the center of our first little portion of our square. Now, I'm going to be using a magic circle to start mine. If you do not want to use a magic circle, you can chain 4, joining your chain to create a ring and working round 1 in the ring. I, however, really enjoy using a magic circle. There are many ways that you can start your magic circle. There are many tutorials on YouTube to show you how to do that. I'm going to share with you how I start mine. Again, you can choose to use this or start with your chain 4, making a ring. When I make my magic circle, I like to make sure I have a really long tail. I believe when people share that their magic ring centers come undone, it's because they don't leave a nice long tail to sew back into their work. So if you're going to do this, or even if you start with your chain 4, leave a nice long tail. You can always sew it in and then cut off the excess later. I start my magic circle a little differently than most do. I like to twist my yarn over and pull my tail completely through, just like I'm going to just make a little knot, just like that. I like to place my hook in from underneath so that my hook is in this hole now. Then I pull the yarn through and I twist that knot. I don't know, it just gives it a little nice extra security in twisting this little ring knot that I've made here before I get started with my stitches. Having said that, I am ready to start on round 1 of our beginning little granny square portion of our log cabin square. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain up 3. 1, 2, and 3. This will count as my first double crochet. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place 2 double crochet into this ring. yarn over into my ring, grabbing my yarn and pulling it through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on my hook. This is my double crochet. Let's do one more. Yarn over into the center ring, pulling my yarn back through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now I have a grouping of 3 double crochet. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and now I'm going to place 3 double crochet right back into this same ring. This will create a second petal of our little granny square flower that's usually seen in the center of a granny square. So here's 1 double crochet, here's 2 double crochet, and 1 more into that ring for a total of a grouping of 3 double crochet. So now I have a grouping of 3, chain 2, a grouping of 3. I'm going to chain 2 again, 1, 2, and place another grouping of 3 into this center ring. Making sure you go over both of these strands. Go through the ring, but also make sure you grab this tail as well. You want to make sure you include this underneath your stitches. So here's 3 more double crochet, 1, here's 2, and here's 3. We now have 3 groupings of 3 double crochet to start our initial granny square. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to complete a grouping of 3 one more time so that our granny square has its 4 distinct sides. So into that same center ring, we're going to place 3 more double crochet. There's 1, 2, and 3. We need to chain 2 just one more time so we have a place for our corner. And we're going to go right up here to the very top chain, 1, 2, 3. We're going to place our hook into that chain. Do your best to make sure you get 2 strands of yarn from that chain. Grab your yarn and pull it through, and complete a slip stitch by pulling it through the loop that's on your hook. Don't yarn over. And here we have our 4 sides. Now's the time to grab that tail from behind here and give it a nice firm pull, nice and snug. And it's going to close up the center of that granny square beautifully. Look how nice that is. Now that we have the center of our cafe latte center square here, we need to go over to this corner to start round 2. I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into the very top of the next double crochet and slip stitch one more time into the top of the next double crochet. And I'm going to slip stitch into this chain 2 space right here. This moves my work over nice and neat, and I'm into the corner where I need to be. We're going to go ahead and chain up 3, 1, 2, 3. This counts as a double crochet. And just like before, we wanted to work in groupings of 3. Since this counts as 1, we're going to place 2 more double crochet into this chain 2 space right here. So here's 1 double crochet, and here's 2 double crochet. This creates the first side of our corner. Now you'll see a lot of patterns that tell you to place 3 chain in your corner. I prefer to work 2 chains in my corners. So throughout this pattern, I will be telling you to create 2 chains when working in your corner. Now, if you are in the habit of placing 3 chains in your corners, that's okay. You can do that. Just know that I will be saying 2 for this pattern. So we're going to go ahead and chain 2, 1, 2. And we're going to place 3 more double crochet right here in this same chain 2 space from round 1. So here's 1 double crochet, And you know, sometimes you run out of real estate real fast, so it's okay to just kind of push those stitches over to the side a little bit. Here's 2 double crochet and 3 double crochet. And here we've created the first corner of round 2 of our log cabin block. We're going to work another corner over here, but in order to get over here, we're going to go ahead and chain 1. And then working in this chain 2 space, now we're going to go ahead and place 3 double crochet. There's 1, 2, and 3. As before, we're going to chain 2 to create our corner, move our stitches over a little bit, and go ahead and place 3 more double crochet in this corner. 1, 2, and 3. So now we have 2 corners completed. Just like before, we're going to chain 1, and that takes us over here so we can work in this next chain 2 space. We're going to complete this shell again. When you have your corners and you have a grouping of 3 and then chains in between and another grouping of 3 in your same chain space, this creates a shell. So we're going to place a shell in this corner here, just as we've done before with 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. Chain 1, and we'll work on our last shell here in this corner, 3 double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochet. We need to go ahead and join here with our initial chain 3, but we need to chain 1 first so we have a chain 1 space, just like we do here on the other sides of our block. So after completing that chain 1, you're going to count up 3, 1, 2, 3 of our initial chain 3 here. Place your hook into that chain, making sure you get 2 pieces of yarn on there in that chain. Grab your yarn and pull it through, and then pull it through the loop that's already on your hook, completing a slip stitch, and that closes that round. Now I like to go ahead and work my yarn over to the corner before finishing it off. I think it gives it a nice clean look, and that way when you work your future stitches into this chain space, it kind of covers the knot that you make. So again, I'm going to go to the next stitch, and I'm going to slip stitch in that one, going to the next stitch and slip stitch there, then going to our chain space and slip stitch into our chain space, and now we're ready to finish off. Now many patterns and many tutorials that you watch will tell you to just go ahead and pull a chain through, cut your yarn and pull it through, and that makes your knot and you've finished off your work. Again, I've seen many projects, and I've even had projects that I've completed myself that have come undone because the finishing isn't done completely, and you put your work in jeopardy if that knot comes undone. What I like to do, and I'm hoping that you will start doing this because it really does save a lot of heartache in the future, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to chain 2. 1, 2. So instead of chaining 1, cutting my yarn and pulling it through, I chain 2. Then I cut my yarn, leaving a nice long tail to sew in later, and I pull my yarn through. So I've got these 2 chains here and this long tail. I like to pinch the very top of that chain there, using my fingernail or my thumbnail to really cinch down on it, and then I give this tail a nice firm tug, and that will cinch a really nice knot very tightly up against your work. This is not going anywhere. Your work is not going to come undone. Don't cut this. We're going to work over this tail, and then we will sew in what's left to make sure that you don't jeopardize your work. But that's it for our first color for our log cabin block. Let's take a look at the next color for our block. We're only going to be working on two sides of our initial square that we made with the cafe latte. So we will be working 2 rows in a back and forth pattern, nothing yet on these sides. So don't get ahead of yourself. Don't start crocheting a traditional granny square round. We're going to switch things up a little bit. We're going to be working back and forth to create our log cabin in the Ozarks block. So for the next color that I'm going to be using for my Afghan is I'm going to be using this frosted green by Red Heart. And I'm going to go ahead and start by placing a slip knot in my yarn. No more magic circles. We'll now be working with slip knots to join, and go ahead and get your hook into the center of that slip knot just like that. Now picking up your block that you've been working on, you can pick any corner to start in. I like to start in the corner that is before the knot where I finished off before. It helps me work over this knot and I know that it is secure. So with your yarn already on your hook, place your hook through the chain 2 space and grab your yarn and pull it back through so you have 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through, and then chain 2. This is the same as joining with a slip stitch and then chaining 3. I just prefer to have a little extra added stability of this actually being a little bit of a single crochet and then chain 2. And I like to tug on this tail a little bit, and that just cinches down that beginning single crochet that we started with, and it leaves us with this, in essence, chain up 3. Holding my tail so that I work over it over my next stitches, I'm going to go ahead and place 2 more double crochet into this chain 2 space. Here's 1 and here's 2. Now you may think, oh, I need to chain 2 to complete a corner because I'm working in a corner. No, 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 no. We're just going to be working across here and then down here. This is as much of a corner as we need. You're going to go ahead and chain 1 and place a grouping of 3 double crochet into the next chain 1 space. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and now we're going to place our shell into this corner here. So double crochet of 3, so here's 1 into that chain 2 space. Here's 2, and here's 3. Chain 2, and holding the tail from where you finished off up against your work, make sure you work your next 3 double crochet over that tail to secure it. There's 1, 2, and 3. And here we have our first corner of our frosted green. Chain 1. Now drop the tail of the cafe latte. You don't want to carry that across. It's not going to look right in the back. Just go ahead and drop that now. And place a grouping of 3 double crochet in the first chain 1 space. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. And now we'll be working in this chain 2 space here at this corner, but we will not be completing a shell. Just as we did over here, we're only going to be completing half of a shell. So in this chain 2 space, 3 double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. And here we have round 1 of our second color. We're only working on these 2 sides. Let's work on getting our next round of the same color. We're going to chain up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to turn our work. And now we're working on the back side of our square. This chain up 4 counts as a double crochet and then a chain. So we've already got our chain 1 space established above this grouping here. We're going to go to our first chain 1 space of the prior row and place 3 double crochet into that chain 1 space. 1, 2, and 3. And now we have started on that second round of our frosted green. Chain 1, place 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3, chain 1. And here we are at our corner. We'll place a shell in this corner, and again a shell is going to be 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, all in this chain 2 space. So here, let's make our shell. Chain 1, place a grouping of 3 double crochet right here in this chain 1 space. Chain 1, a grouping of 3 in this chain 1 space. And now we're going to chain 4. Just as we chained 4 over here at the beginning to create this space right here, we're going to end our round with having a chain 4 that creates a space over here. So we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go to our chain 3 where we started this grouping, and we're going to go ahead and just slip stitch into that third chain, grabbing our yarn and pulling it through. Grabbing our yarn and pulling it through, and then pulling it through the loop that's on our hook. And that creates this little space here, just as we have a little space at the beginning of our block right over here. Now, just like before, I'm going to have you chain 2. We're done with this color now. We've completed 2 rows. Grabbing our pair of scissors and leaving ourselves a nice long tail. Go ahead and cut that color. Pulling our hook so that it pulls the yarn through. Pinching the very top of this chain and very snugly pulling on that yarn so it pulls that knot right up against our work. And so here we've completed our second color in our log cabin in the Ozarks block. Now let's move on to our third color, which is this beautiful medium thyme. Just as we did with our last color change, we're going to go ahead and begin with a slip knot, leaving ourselves a nice long tail that can be worked over and sewn in later. Go ahead and place that slip knot on your hook and secure it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start where we finished off. Here we have the chain 4 that we created right before we finished off right here when we made this really nice secure knot. We're going to be working in this chain 4 space to join our next color. In the same fashion that we started our last color change, we're going to start this color change right here in this space by placing our hook through that chain 4 space, grabbing our yarn and pulling it through. We have 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over and pull through both loops and then chain 2. I like to go ahead and pull that tail and snug it down up against our work. And now we're going to work 2 double crochet into this chain 4 space, making sure we work over the tail where we just joined our yarn. So here's 1 double crochet and 2 double crochet. So now it makes sense why we had this chain 4 space, because now it serves as a double crochet and a chain 1 space. Chain 1, drop that tail. You don't need to keep that tail now, and place a grouping of 3 double crochet in the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, a grouping of 3 in this chain 1 space. Chain 1, and a shell in the chain 2 space here on our corner. And again, a shell is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. You're going to chain 1, work a grouping of 3 in this chain 1 space. Chain 1, work another grouping in this chain 1 space, and then chain 1, and I'll meet you when we get here to the end. Okay, here we are at the end of round 1 for this color change of this beautiful medium thyme. We have this chain 4 loop right here. We're going to go ahead and complete 3 double crochets in that chain 4 space. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Now, just as we did down here, we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn our work. We're going to place a grouping of 3 in our first chain 1 space here of our prior round. There's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. And now what I want you to do is place a grouping of 3 in this chain 1 space, chain 1, a grouping of 3 in this chain 1 space, chain 1. Complete a shell in this chain 2 space corner here. Again, the shell is 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. Then chain 1, working a grouping in this chain 1 space, chain 1, work a grouping in this chain 1 space, chain 1, work a grouping in this chain 1 space, and I'll meet up with you when we get right here. We've just completed the last grouping of 3 in this chain 1 space, and we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go to this chain 3 that counted as our first double crochet of this prior row. We're going to go ahead and place our hook into the very top chain. Again, making sure that you get 2 loops onto that hook there. Grab your yarn and pull it through, and grab that, and then pull it through the loop that's on your hook, creating that slip stitch. Chain 2, leaving yourself a nice long tail. Go ahead and cut that yarn. Pull your hook and make that yarn go all the way through, completing your finish off. Pinch those stitches and give a nice firm tug and pull that knot up against your work. And there we've completed our third color. Now, you may notice it looks a little off here on the edges. It looks like this is way too big for our initial square that we started. That's okay, because we're going to put a border on in a little bit and it will actually smooth everything out. Now you can quit with 3 colors, or you can do a 4th color or a 5th color or a 6th color, however many colors you want to do for your blocks. Just know that as your square grows, you need to take the size into consideration when determining how many blocks to make for your Afghan. I have one more color to add before I put my border on, and that is this beautiful navy blue. I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera because you know now how to put these sides on your initial granny square, and you can do that as many times as you like. Just make sure you repeat these 2 rows, or repeat these 2 rows. It's going to be the same for these 2 rows. You're going to start in your chain 4 spaces and work them exactly as we did here. So I'm going to go ahead and work 2 rounds of my navy blue, and then I'll be back to show you how we do our border. So here we have our 4 main colors for our log cabin in the Ozarks block that we'll be making an Afghan with, and now it's time to put our border on. We'll be completing our border in our yarn colorway of coffee. And this will now be worked on all 4 sides of our block. And as you can see, this really evens out those edges that were a little cattywampus earlier. This will give you a nice, neat, clean surface for joining your blocks together to complete your Afghan. So let's make our border. As we've done in the past, we're going to make sure we have a nice long tail and start with a slip knot. Go ahead and place that on our hook and secure it snugly. Now we can start this border round in any corner we like. I like to start right here in our original granny square. Go ahead and take a moment and look at your granny square to determine what side is the right side and what side is the wrong side. As we look at this one here, we can see the very tops of our stitches. They're facing towards us, and everything is nice and neat and pretty. If we turn it over, however, all of our stitches are facing away from us. We don't have easy access to those front loops and back loops. And the work on the back here looks a little chunkier. It's not as smooth as it is on the front side. Plus our tails are back here, so we know that this is the back of our work. So let's go ahead and flip that back over and have the correct side of our work. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start right here in this corner. As we have with our other color changes, we're going to go ahead and slip stitch into this chain 2 space of our corner, grabbing our yarn and pulling it through. We have 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over, pull through both loops, and chain 2. Giving that a nice firm snug. We're going to go ahead and push this all the way over to the side this time. We're not just completing a grouping of 3 double crochets as we have in the past when we did color changes. We're actually going to complete a shell here in the corner for our work. So for the shell, we need 2 more double crochet, making sure you grab your tail and hold it so you're working over it. We're going to complete 2 double crochet. Here's 1 and 2. Keeping in mind that this chain up here counts as a double crochet. We're going to chain 2, making sure we have plenty of room in the corner here. I'm going to go ahead and add 3 more double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Now, just as we did before, we're going to work a grouping of 3 into this chain 1 space. We're going to chain 1 and work that grouping of 3 into this chain 1 space. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Get this knot out here. There we go. Now, this isn't a chain 1 space here, but it's the other corner space. We're going to go ahead and chain 1 and place a grouping of 3 right here that shares this corner. So here's 1, 2, and 3. We're going to chain 1, and as we work along the side of this block, we don't have a chain 1 space. We have this portion here where we joined on and we had the little bit of a single crochet plus the chain 2, and I know I've been referring to it as a chain 3, but you know what I mean. We've got here, this is the space we're going to work in. Make sure you lay that tail across your work, and we're going to place 3 double crochet into this space. So here's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and then determine the next place where you're going to find a space to place your grouping in. Again, we've got this space here from where we added our yarn, or you can consider it where we did our chain 4 and secured off. Depends on what side you're working on your block. So again, working in this space, we're going to take this tail from where we finished off, hold it up against our work, and complete 3 double crochet in this space here. Chain 1. Now we're here to the corner, and we're going to go ahead and work a shell in this corner. Make sure you chain 1 before you get there, lay that tail across your work, and work over that tail. So we're going to complete a shell by completing 3 double crochet. Here's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, and completing 3 double crochet in this same space, completing our shell. 1, 2, and 3. Now as we work across this next side of our block, everything's going to be very easy to see. We know we're going to do a chain 1, work a grouping in this chain 1 space, chain 1, work a grouping in this next chain 1 space, and such until we get to the corner here. We'll work our shell in the corner, and we'll do the same down the next side. Everything will remain the same. Chain 1, work 3 in a chain 1 space. Chain 1, work 3 double crochet in a chain 1 space. Chain 1, work 3 double crochet in a chain 1 space, and so on to the next corner where you'll complete the shell of 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. And then again, when you get to this final side, this is where you're going to find you don't have those chain 1 spaces. You have these chain up spaces where we added our yarn, and depending on how many rows you do, where you may have fastened off. So just make sure that you work these spaces just as you would work a chain 1 space. Now don't forget this corner right here. It's not as evident. See how big these spaces are? This one's not as big because you're sharing the corner where you started this round right here. Make sure you don't skip that. And I'm going to meet up with you right here when we're getting ready to join. And 3. This is our final grouping of 3 double crochet into a chain 1 space. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to locate our original chain 3 that counted as our first double crochet. Place our yarn into that top chain there and complete a slip stitch to finish off and close up that round. Just like we've done before, chain 2, leaving yourself a nice long tail. Go ahead and cut that. Pull your yarn through with your hook, pinch, and snug that knot right up against your work. And here we have our completed square. Now is the time that you're going to want to grab that needle and secure all of your ends in. And let's discuss how I like to do that to ensure that your work does not come undone. We've already worked over the majority of these tails, and we still have plenty of tail left. I like to just go ahead and thread this onto your needle and locate where you've got some stitches nearest where your tail is. So for this one here with our Cafe Latte, we have a whole bunch of stitches right here in our frosted green. take your needle and place it under these stitches, but don't go here. You want to go ahead and go in one. That's going to catch your thread and keep you from pulling it back through where it's already covered up. You don't want to undo what you did by securing it underneath your stitches already. So place your needle one thread in and capture all of these parts of the stitch here. And go ahead and pull that yarn through. And that's going to hide that tail. And when you pull it, it makes it really nice and snug. It catches it right there. Let's go ahead and work it through these other stitches here on the other side of this corner here. Pulling it through all of those stitches there. Don't pull too hard, just nice and firm. Now I like to go back the direction we just came. Again, making sure you go over one of these threads so you don't undo what you just did. And pull your yarn back through. Nice firm tug. And just take it all the way out the other end of those groupings of stitches there. So now you've worked over it. You've gone back through the stitches one direction and back through the stitches in the second direction. And I think that's going to give you a nice secure tail. Your work's not going to come undone. Go ahead and grab your scissors and trim what's left of your tail close to your work, making sure you don't actually cut your work. Okay, be very careful with that. I've seen it happen and it's heartbreaking. Take the time to go ahead and sew all of your tails in. I know I said this was a no-sew pattern, but we cannot avoid the ends. So make sure you get all those done, and we'll come back and we'll discuss joining your squares together to make this beautiful log cabin in the Ozarks, Afghan. All right, let's discuss how we're going to do a flat braid join to put all of our blocks together. I've already determined what direction I want my blocks to go. They're going to stay in the same direction with the original little 2 round granny square always in this corner. Now for my blanket that I took to the log cabin in the Ozarks, I joined with the same color as my last round. So I joined everything with this beautiful coffee color, and that way it's seamless, it's beautiful. It still shows the details, but it doesn't pop right out at you. It blends in beautifully for a beautiful Afghan. But for today's tutorial, I'm going to be using a white color so you can see the stitches as we work with them, because I realize this is a little dark. So with this color, the same color you're going to join with, which again, this is white, it would normally be the coffee color. I'm going to start with a slip knot and get that onto our hook here. Locating any chain 1 space before a corner, we're going to go ahead and we're going to place our hook into that chain 1 space, grab our yarn and pull it through, yarn over and pull through 2. And this basically creates a single crochet right here. You can chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Going to the corner, our chain 2 space right here, we're going to place a single crochet. Now, what this has done is this has provided a pretty little loop that we're going to work in to join all of our squares together, and it'll be a join as you go once we get our first square established, and we'll be working in the space that's created by these chain 3s, okay? But we're here in the corner now, and the corners always get special attention because we have to turn this corner, and in order to do that we have to create a corner on this round. So we have our single crochet, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to single crochet right back in that same corner right there. And this creates this nice little loop on our corners, okay? So we have this larger chain 3 loop and then this pretty little closed in chain 3 loop here on our corner. Rotating our work as we go so it's comfortable for you. You want this to be comfortable. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Finding our next chain 1 space on this last round, we're going to place a single crochet. There we go. And chain 3, 1, 2, 3, finding the next chain 1 space, place a single crochet. So you can see as we work, we're getting these little chain 3 loops that we'll be working in to join all of our subsequent blocks as we go. Let's work this together to the next corner, and then I'm going to let you finish the rest of it on your own. This works up so quickly. 1, 2, 3, single crochet in the next chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3, single crochet in the chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3, single crochet in the chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3. We're at the corner again, so we're going to single crochet in that corner space, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and place a second single crochet in that same corner space, creating this nice little closed in little chain 3 loop. So again, we've got all of these little chain 3 loops that we're working with, and this is how we'll be using these, and we'll be using these to join our next blocks. I'm going to continue around completing the other 3 sides. I'll meet up with you right here where we're going to join in with the first single crochet that we made. Okay, I've worked all the way around. I've just completed my last single crochet in my chain 1 space. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the very top of this single crochet, making sure I get both the front loop and the back loop. Pull my yarn through and then pull it through the loop that's on my hook, and then go ahead and chain, and then go ahead and finish off. And secure that. So you can see the detail now of all of these pretty little loops that we've got and the single crochets. Again, keep in mind that for the blanket that I made, I used the same coffee color, so you didn't see the detail like this. Now, if you want the detail to show, you can choose one of the other colors that are in your block, or you could use a complementary color. It is entirely up to you. Let's see how we're going to attach the next block to this block so we can start putting blocks together without sewing them. So here I've got another block. Again, we're going to go ahead and start with our contrasting colors so you can see easily. Start with a slip knot and get that on our hook. We're going to select the first chain 1 space before a corner. And I'm choosing this one because I'm going to be joining these 2 blocks, and I want to make sure that my cafe latte is in this corner and the cafe latte is in this corner. So I'll be working across the bottom here and joining at this corner here. But let's move this until we get to that point. So locating the first chain 1 space before this corner, I'm going to hold my work so that it is comfortable to me. That means it's not going to be in position where I necessarily want it, but I'm going to hold it where I need it until I get to that corner. I'm going to go ahead and join my complementary color yarn with a single crochet like that. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Here we are at the corner. Just as before, we're going to place a single crochet, chain 3, and a single crochet in that same chain 2 space of the corner. So we have our little chain 3 loop here, and then we have a much more closed in chain 3 loop here at the corner. Rotating my work so it's easy to work with, I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and place a single crochet right here in this first chain 1 space. Chain 3, single crochet. You see how quickly this moves? 1, 2, 3. Single crochet. And I'm going to continue this until I get to the corner. Don't get ahead of me. Don't grab every single block and do this all the way around like we did our first block. You're going to want to catch up with me right here at this corner because things are going to change. So don't jump ahead of me, okay? 1, 2, 3, and here we're at the corner of the block that we're going to join, and I'm going to place a single crochet. Now I'm not going to chain 3. When we're joining 2 blocks together, instead of chain 3 on the sides where they join, we're going to be completing a chain, slip stitch, chain. It's still 3 stitches, just like 3 chains are 3 stitches, but we're working them so that we're going to capture these little loops that we made, and that's going to join our work. Okay, so I've got my first single crochet in this corner. I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to take this other block that I've already done, and I know I want to join to this corner right here where my cafe latte is, and I'm going to go from the underneath side of this little loop right here in the corner. I'm going to place my hook through that chain loop, not through the chain, through the space right here, this little loop. I'm going to put my hook up through there, and I'm going to pull it through. I'm not going to yarn over. I'm just going to pull it through and pull through again. This is a slip stitch, chain 1. So again, instead of a chain 3, it's going to be a chain, slip stitch, chain. Now this block that we're presently working on, it needs another single crochet in the corner. So we're going to go right into that corner and complete our single crochet. So now we have our corners joined, and we're going to join this block that we're working on to this block that we've already got the edging on. And I'm going to try to show you as they lay flat like this, how this process works. And hopefully my hand won't be in the way. We've just completed our single crochet right here in this corner. We're going to chain 1, not 3, 1. On this block, we're going to locate our first little chain 3 space, not the corner, but the first chain 3 space. And we're just going to place our hook from the bottom up through the top into that chain 3 space. And we're just going to grab our yarn and pull it back through that chain 3 space and through the loop that's on our hook, completing a slip stitch. Chain 1. So remember, the chain, slip stitch, chain takes the place of our chain 3. And here now we're connected into this chain 3 space right here. Now that we've done the chain, slip stitch, chain, we're going to go to our next chain 1 space on the block we're working on, and we're going to place a single crochet. Okay, chain 1, locate our next chain 3 space on the block we've already worked on. And we're just going to go ahead and slip stitch around that chain 3 and then chain 1. So we did a chain, slip stitch, chain. Going back to the block we're working on, we're going to find the next chain 1 space and complete a single crochet. And I'm going to show you how this looks once we get to the end. Chain 1, go back to this one here and find that chain 3 space and slip stitch around that chain 3 and then chain 1. Going back to the block we're working on, finding our next chain 1 space, complete a single crochet. Chain 1, find our next chain 3 loop and slip stitch around that chain 3, chain 1. Back to the block we're working on, find the next chain 1 space and complete a single crochet. Chain 1, find our next chain 3 loop and slip stitch around that chain 3 and then do a chain 1. Going back to the block we're working on, a single crochet in the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, find our next chain 3 space here on the block from the other, find our next chain 3 loop here and slip stitch around that loop and chain 1. Go back to the block we're working on, and we're at the corner now at the block we're working on. So we're going to place a single crochet in that corner. We're going to chain 1, Going back to the prior block, we're at the corner here as well, and we've got this little chain 3 little closed loop that I told you about. We're just going to slip stitch into that chain 3 loop. Just slip stitch it, chain 1. Going back to the block we're working on, we have to finish this corner by placing another single crochet in this corner. Now, let's see how this looks. I've been kind of keeping it a secret from you. I know it was a little confusing, but let's lay this out flat and see how this flat braid looks when you're joining your pieces together. Now, really, you may think that this is nothing super impressive, but we've joined our 2 blocks together. We've done it without sewing, and once you get how the pattern works, it goes relatively quickly. But let me show you how pretty this is when you've got this blanket laid out on your bed or across your lap. These joins aren't going to stay this close. Let me show you. Once these have separated a little bit, look at this beautiful braid that you have in between your blocks. Very, very pretty, especially when you have it in the same color as the last rounds of your blocks. Very pretty, very simple to put together, and it's a very unique look for your blanket. So, so pretty. It can be delicate, it could be feminine, but it can be masculine as well. Who doesn't love a good braid or a zigzag? So now that we have this side joined, I'm going to go ahead and rotate my work and work down this side now of this second block that we're joining. Now I have nothing to join it to. I just need to complete this round. So eventually I'm going to have something to connect more squares to. So since we've completed the actual joining part of joining to this block here, we're going to go back to our prior pattern of chaining 3, 1, 2, 3, and then single crochet in the next chain 1 space. Chain 3, single crochet in the next chain 1 space. Chain 3, single crochet in the next chain 1 space. Now before I get to the corner, let me mention that let's say I'm not going to put a real fancy border on this Afghan. This is all the border I need. This is all the border I need, all the edging I need. It's going to just kind of pull everything together nicely. The blanket's going to look great. However, if you want to put an edging, an additional scalloped edging, or any other kind of edging around the edge of your Afghan, you certainly can. But meanwhile, I'm going to finish up this second square, and then I'm going to show you how to add your next row of squares, because things are going to change up a little bit when we get to these corners right here. So I'll come back when I'm ready to work on these joins and show you how that works. Okay, here we are on our next row, and I've already worked all the way around this block. I've joined it here at this corner, and I've worked all the way across on this flat braid join, and now I'm to the corner here where I'm going to eventually have 4 blocks meet up in this corner. Now you may think that you're going to attach this corner to this corner and this corner over here to this corner here. It makes sense, right? But it's not going to work, because then you're going to end up with a big gaping hole right here in the middle. So let me show you how to address that so that you don't end up having a big gaping hole in your Afghan. So let me show you how to address that. We're here at this corner here. We're going to place our single crochet, chain 1, and instead of going up into this corner directly above it, we're going to go into the corner catty corner from it. So here is our little loop right here. We're going to place our hook in from underneath towards the top, grab our yarn and pull it through, completing that slip stitch, chain 1, and we're going to place our second single crochet into that corner here to complete that process. Okay, there we go. So now this has pulled this corner across this way and vice versa, and then when we add this block, it's going to pull these corners vice versa, and right now it looks like a hot mess, but once they're all put together, let me show you the beautiful pattern it creates right here in the corner. I'm going to finish up working down this edge of this block. Okay, so here we are where this fourth corner is going to meet up. I've already joined the sides all the way up in our pretty little flat braid zigzag stitch here. And I've got my first single crochet worked into the corner of my fourth block that's going to complete joining these four. I've got my single crochet and I've chained one. Now I need to slip stitch, but I need to determine where I'm going to slip stitch. Let me use this crochet hook to show you. I'm not going to attach the corner of this block directly above, so I'm not going to place it here. I'm not going to attach this block over here to the side, so it's not going to go into this little pocket here. Doing either one of those is going to result in a gaping hole right here. So what I want to do is I want to slip stitch catty corner, and I'm going to slip stitch into this pocket right here. That means there's a lot of stuff going on right here in this corner, but that's okay, because once all of these little stitches find their place, this is going to create a beautiful pattern. So I'm going to rotate this just a little bit. We have our single crochet and our chain. We're going to go from the bottom up through catty corner into this loop here. And we're going to pull tight, grab that yarn and pull it through and slip stitch. Okay? Chain one. That kind of locks everything into place. Since we're working in this corner, we're going to place another single crochet right there in that corner to finish off the corner. Now we're going to chain one, and since we're let me rotate this. We've done our chain one, and since now we're going to attach across here, we're just going to continue right across here. So I really like that it's single crochet, chain one, slip stitch, chain one, single crochet, chain one, slip stitch, chain one. Do you see how fast this goes? Single crochet, chain one, slip stitch, chain one, single crochet, chain one, slip stitch, chain one, single crochet, chain one, slip stitch, chain one, single crochet, chain one, slip stitch, chain one. We're here to the corner now. Single crochet, chain one, slip stitch into this little corner, chain one, and we're going to single crochet right back into this corner that we're working on again, so that finishes that pattern. Now let's take a look at how this joining of our four corners looks. Okay, so we have our four blocks joined here in the corner. Once you get everything joined, just kind of come in with a little crochet hook and just kind of give everything a little bit of a shove towards the center of where everything is joined, okay? And now look. And now look at what it formed in the center. Look at this beautiful little snowflake that it formed in the corner, or a little flower. So, so pretty. And did you see how quickly, once you get the habit of just doing single crochet, chain one, slip stitch, chain one, how everything comes together beautifully. The important thing to remember is you always want to slip stitch into the space of your chain threes, okay? Don't go into any actual stitches. What I love about this too is you really don't have to count all of your stitches from your last row. If we were sewing this together or single crocheting this together, we would have to make sure that every stitch for every double crochet and every chain lined up perfectly to keep things from getting out of shape. Here, you're just working in the chain spaces and it comes together so nice. So that's it for this tutorial on this modified flat braid stitch. I say modified because Some of the tutorials that you see on YouTube will have you remove the hook, enter from the top of your stitch, and grab your hook and pull it through to do your slip stitches. I don't do that. I don't have time for that, and I don't think it affects the look that much. I love how this looks. So I hope you enjoyed these tutorials for making this beautiful log cabin in the Ozarks Afghan. I love it. If you enjoyed this tutorial and plan on making a beautiful log cabin in the Ozarks Afghan for yourself, please make sure you subscribe. Click the like button, comment down below, and let me know how things are going for you. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd be more than happy to try to help you. And make sure you give my little brother a little love in the comments as well, as he is battling cancer, and that's who this blanket is going to be for. All right, friends, until I see you in the craft room again, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and have a blessed day. And I really hope you give this modified flat braid join a try. Bye-bye.